settle down. We have spent many nights in this dungeon, dissecting the more theatrical of the dark arts, the grand betrayals, the soul bindings, the elaborate smear campaigns. These are the curses that announce themselves with thunder and fire. But today, we conduct a quieter, colder autopsy. We will examine a war fought not on the battlefield of the heart, but on the very terrain of reality itself. A war whose primary objective was not your affection, but your sanity. You believed you were a partner in a failed romance. You were a prisoner in a 7-year psychological experiment. The weapons in this war were not swords, but whispers, not sieges, but silences. The goal was not to conquer your love, but to dismantle your perception, brick by agonizing brick, until you stood in the rubble of your own mind, convinced you were the architect of your own ruin. Let us begin the vivisection. The foundational strategy of this campaign is a poison known in the common tongue as gaslighting, a crude term for a sophisticated art. Its purpose is not merely to lie, but to make the target believe they are incapable of discerning truth from fiction. For 7 years, every correct intuition you possessed, every logical deduction you made, was diagnosed as a symptom of your own madness. You saw the evidence of infidelity, the secret communiques, the digital ghosts of other men haunting the periphery of your shared existence. You presented these facts, these logical incongruities, as any sane man would. Her response was not denial. It was a counter-accusation of a far more sinister nature. You are crazy. You are paranoid. You are obsessed. This was not a defense. It was an incantation, a spell repeated with such chilling consistency that it began to warp the very fabric of your reality. She was not arguing against your evidence. She was arguing against your right to have a perception at all. She was methodically, patiently teaching your nervous system that your own senses were lies. This is the genius of the master manipulator. They do not build a cage for you. They convince you to build it for yourself, bar by mental bar. And then they convince you that the prison is, in fact, a sanctuary, and the world outside is the source of the madness. While this siege on your sanity was underway, a second front was opened, a form of psychological torture known as triangulation. The name of the other one, this Tyler, was not merely the name of a rival. It was a weapon, a ghost summoned at will to haunt your home. He was the unspoken third party in every argument, the shadow in your bed, the specter used to prove your supposed paranoia. Her obsession with him was not a testament to her love for him. It was a testament to her contempt for you. He was the perfect tool to keep you in a perpetual state of competition for a prize you already possessed but were being convinced was never yours. You were driven to the brink, questioning every interaction, every glance, every silence. And then the universe, in a moment of grim irony, delivered the proof, his message. The one you received out of nowhere, confirming the affair, confirming the lies, confirming everything. In that moment, you learned the most devastating truth of all. You were not crazy. You were correct. And the horror of being correct was 1,000 times more painful than the suspicion. Because to be correct meant that the person you had trusted for 7 years was a monster. To be correct meant your reality had indeed been a carefully constructed lie. You did not want to be right. You wanted her to be different. But she was not different. She was consistent. Consistent in her cruelty. Consistent in her avarice. This brings us to the logistics of her campaign. The financial exploitation. Do not mistake this for simple greed. It was a core component of the psychological warfare. You funded the entire operation. Rent, bills, sustenance, drawn from your accounts. You believed you were investing in a shared future. She saw you as an operating budget. You were not a partner. You were an asset, a self-replenishing resource that funded her existence while she prepared her escape. The evidence is not in a secret text message, but in the cold, hard mathematics of her secret ledger. Over $10,000 saved. This was not a savings account. It was an escape fund. It was the material proof that your discard was not an impulsive act of passion, but a long-term, calculated business decision. And the cruelty was not confined to the grand scale. It was in the microscopic details. Consider the ritual of your birthday, a milestone that, in any healthy dynamic, is an affirmation of a person's value. For her, it was an opportunity for a masterclass in devaluation, the fiction of the cancelled items, an exquisite performance of feigned disappointment designed to inflict a very specific and calculated wound. The message was this: you are not worth even the most trivial of investments. Your value is so negligible that even the effort of a small gift is a bridge too far. She did not simply give you nothing. She wrapped her nothing in a theatrical production of contempt. And after 7 years of this sustained, multi-front assault, the final detonation occurred. The discarded predictably. You reacted. You, a man who had been psychologically flayed, financially drained, and systematically deceived, finally screamed. You sent the nasty email. This was not your failure. This was the potion's success. The cauldron was designed to explode. And in that moment of detonation, the trap sprang. Your predictable human reaction became her proof. The smoke from your explosion was captured, bottled, and presented to her family, her flying monkeys, and the world as evidence of your instability. You were branded the abuser. You were the monster. It was the perfect crime. This leads to your collapse, the utter devastation. The financial ruin was not a separate tragedy. It was a symptom of the emotional annihilation. The gambling addiction that followed. Do not carry shame for this. Your addiction was a desperate, primal scream for control in a universe where you had just been shown you had none. It was the frantic attempt to win something, anything, in a game where you had just lost your sanity, your savings, and your sense of self. It was a predictable side effect of the poison she had administered for years. To understand the profound existential sickness at the heart of this, we must turn away from the cauldron and toward the philosopher's lectern. The Danish thinker Søren Kierkegaard wrote extensively on the concept of despair, which he called the sickness unto death. For Kierkegaard, the most profound form of despair is not sadness or grief. It is the spiritual sickness of having lost one's self. He identified a specific form of this despair, the despair of not being conscious of having a self. This is the state of the person who is so lost in the external world, so defined by others that they are not even aware they possess an inner, eternal self. This is the state the narcissist attempts to induce in their victim. Over 7 years, she worked to dissolve your identity. Your perceptions were wrong. Your feelings were invalid. Your reality was a fiction. You were to exist only as a reflection of her needs, a character in her story. She was attempting to push you into a state of despair where you were no longer conscious of having a self separate from her narrative. When you began to resist, to assert your own perception, you moved into another form of despair. Kierkegaard identified the despair of not willing to be oneself. You knew something was wrong, but the pain of confronting the truth that your life was a lie was so immense that you chose, for a time, to try and live in her reality. To suppress your own self, you tried to be the person she claimed you were. This, too, is a sickness unto death. The narcissist themselves lives in the final, most damnable form of despair. The despair of willing to be oneself, but as a self-created God. They reject their true, flawed self and construct a false, perfect persona. They are in a constant, frantic state of trying to be a self they are not. Their entire existence is a lie, and to sustain that lie, they must force everyone around them to live within it. They must dismantle the selves of others to make room for their own grandiose fiction. She tried to infect you with her sickness unto death. She tried to make you a casualty of her own despair. What, then, is the cure? According to Kierkegaard, the opposite of despair is not happiness, it is faith. Not faith in a deity, necessarily, but faith as the act of willing to be oneself. The cure is the conscious, terrifying, and liberating choice to accept and be your own authentic self, in full view of the truth, no matter how brutal that truth may be. Your journey out of this abyss began the moment you stopped accepting her diagnosis of your reality. It began the moment you chose to believe the evidence of your own senses over the comfort of her lies. This channel, this ledger of truths, is your ongoing act of faith. It is you willing to be yourself, scars and all. You are not a loser. You are not undisciplined. You are a survivor of a 7-year war on your soul. The scars you carry are not marks of shame. They are proof of your survival. The rage you feel is not a character flaw. It is the sacred fire of a self refusing to be extinguished. Her retribution is not your goal. Her retribution is her own existence. She is condemned to repeat her pathetic cycle, forever chasing new supply, forever running from the void within, forever trapped in the most profound despair of all. Your task is to continue the great work of forging yourself. Take the shards of the man she tried to shatter and build a fortress. Take the poison she administered and distill it into an antidote for others. Your pain was the crucible, your suffering the fire. What has emerged is not the broken man she left behind, but a tempered blade. Let your peace be your revenge. Let your success be the final word. The lesson is over.